You may have seen these buildable facility spots on islands while exploring the new sailing skill. Stuff like cooking pots, furnaces, and even bank chests. But did you know there's actually 28 of these in total, and that some of them are incredibly useful to have built? In this video, I'll show you how to build every island amenity if you want to have them all made. But I also talk about the most important ones to have if you don't care about completionist stuff. Building all of the island amenities requires 76 sailing and 70 construction. There are individual requirements for each type of amenity and each island though. You'll also need your boat to have an adamant helm, inoculation station, and adamant keel. The island amenity wiki page is really helpful to keep track of what you have built and to see all of the supplies and requirements. If you don't want to build absolutely everything, you can just look at this page to see what islands you want to go to. I think the most important ones to build are the bank chests on Onyx Crest for lantern harpooning, at least one of the bank chests in Deepfin Point mine, the Charred Island bank if you plan on doing strike worms, the rowboat on Tear of the Soul for easy access to a hard clue step, the rowboat on Angler's Retreat for a hardwood tree patch, Sunbleak Island bank because this is the only place with accessible ironwood trees, the rowboat on Ynysdail for quick access to the Gwyneth Glide Barracuda trial and aquanites, and lastly the rowboat on Buccaneers Haven for a master clue step. I'll talk more about these things when I get to them, and there's even more that could be useful to you depending on your goals and restrictions, so I recommend watching the full video even if you don't want to build all of the random filler stuff. The JMods themselves have said a lot of these are absolutely just for world building and have no actual purpose, and it's definitely not good construction XP. It's about 16k XP to build everything on this list, which you can only build once. But this guide will show you how to build everything if you want to have everything built for completionist reasons. Maybe some of these will have a better use in the future, but I wouldn't count on it. I guess it's really just for fun. I will show an efficient route to build everything though, just to save a bit of time. So you'll need quite a bit of materials first. The Island Amenity wiki page shows the total materials you need, which you can cross off as you go. So in total you'll need 31 iron bars, 10 logs, 8 tinder boxes, 4 buckets, 6 oak planks, 2 balls of wool, 4 limestone bricks, 5 coal, 40 camphor planks, 50 swamp paste, 16 steel bars, 24 ironwood planks, 12 adamant bars, 12 cupro nickel bars, 6 magic stones, 1 rope, and 8 lead bars. If you're an Iron Man, you can get camphor planks by cutting camphor trees on the Great Conch and turning them into planks. This requires 66 woodcutting, 45 sailing, and completion of the Troubled Tortugan's quest. This is the main thing needed for building rowboats. The one thing I highly recommend building beforehand is the bank on Sunbleak Island. This is the only place where you can chop ironwood trees unless you have an ironwood tree planted in a hardwood patch. What I personally did was I went to Sunbleak Island with 2 adamant bars, 2 cupro nickel bars, a magic stone, an axe, and enough runes and GP for 4 casts of the plank make spell on the lunar spellbook, which is 14k GP, 4 nature runes, and 8 astrals. And you also need a hammer and saw. Cut 4 ironwood logs and use the spell to turn them into planks. That way you can have all the materials needed to make the bank, and you can just stay there and chop as many ironwood logs as you want. This requires 80 woodcutting, 72 sailing, and an adamant helm on your boat to access this island. And the plank make spell requires 86 magic and completion of Dream Mentor. Cupro nickel bars are made by smelting 2 copper and 1 nickel ore. You can just buy copper and mine nickel ore on Deepfin Point. This requires 74 mining and smithing and 67 sailing. Deepfin Point is really nice for this because there's a shop nearby that sells copper ore and a furnace all pretty close to a bank. Building bank amenities requires cupro nickel bars and ironwood planks, so you need to have all of these requirements if you're an iron. Lead bars are really easy to get. They're just 2 smelted lead ore. You can buy it at Deepfin Point or Port Roberts or mine it in the cave on Pandemonium. This requires 25 mining and smithing and is used for building anvils. Now that you have all of the materials gathered, let's get started. You'll need a hammer and saw for all of these, so keep them on you. You can use Amy's saw and the Mkando hammer, and equip both to save inventory space if you have those. I also highly recommend having the Sailor's Amulet for a quick teleport to Deepfin Point. Runes for the Summon Boat spell if you have 56 magic. This teleports your boat to whatever whatever dock you're standing on, or a boat bottle also works. And a few bank teleports would be good to have, along with a couple of other teleports I mentioned later. You can get to all of these places with a ferry ring. I also recommend doing some port tasks along the way, or bringing items for ocean encounters. Mainly the giant clam, because it gives you collection log items. You give items to the clam, and then the next time you see it, it'll give you a pearl. You can look at that giant clam wiki page to see what items you can use. I have the first few pearls, so I'm bringing mystic boots just in case I see it. First, start at the Great Conch. You can get here by using the ferry ring code CJQ. You can use the bank here to grab out the first supplies. Remember your hammer and saw and boat teleport if your boat isn't already docked here. For the materials, you'll need 2 iron bars, a bucket, 8 steel bars, 2 coal, and a tinderbox. Building the bank chest is a little expensive and requires 70 construction, but if you're building it, you'll also need 4 ironwood planks, 2 addy bars, 2 cupronickel bars, and a magic stone. Run south to the dock and summon your boat here. Now you sail southwest to the first island, the Onyx Crest, which requires 47 sailing. There are some krakens around here, so just try to avoid them. It's a pretty short sail though. Now on the island, there are 3 amenities you can build. First is a water pump in this camp area. You can also inspect each of these building spaces to see the required levels and materials in case you forget. Then a little to the south is a furnace. And then in the middle of the island is a bank chest space. This is really nice to have built because there's a spot for lantern harpooning really close by. So if you're not cutting the fish into offcuts, you can easily bank them to cook later or make into squid paste for herblore trading. There's also lead rocks here. They're not super close to the bank because you have to run around this ridge to get to it, but it's fairly close to a furnace, which could be nice for UIMs. If you have the bank built, you'll want to bank here before going to the next island. Otherwise, you could sail back to the Great Conch to bank. The next materials you'll need are 4 iron bars, 4 lead bars, and if you're building the bank, 4 ironwood planks, 2 addy bars, 2 cupronickel bars, and 1 magic stone. From the Onyx Crest, it's just northwest to Charred Island, which requires 60 sailing to moor at. Here on the island, you can first build the anvil, and then the bank chest. You can easily see where the buildable amenities are by the icons on the minimap. This is actually the closest bank to an anvil if you don't have access to Prifddinas. Charred Island has a red salamander hunting spot, but really the main reason to have the bank built is if you want to do lava stripe worms on a worm slayer task. They're a bit of a higher combat level than regular worms, but have a chance to drop dragon metal sheets. Next, we're going to Sunbleak Island, which requires 72 sailing and an adamant helm. If you don't have the bank chest built on Charred Island, there's a bank boat in the ocean to the northwest. Bank and grab out these materials: 4 iron bars, a bucket, 2 logs, a tinderbox, 4 ironwood planks, 2 addy bars, 2 cupronickel bars, and a magic stone. Those last things you only need if you don't have the bank chest built yet. From Charred Island, it's mostly west and a little south to get to Sunbleak. There's some rocks around the island, so I think going around south of the island is a little faster to get to the mooring point. Of course, the most important thing to build here is the bank if you ever plan on cutting ironwoods. They're actually a really good AFK woodcutting method, even if you don't need them for planks. There's also a cooking pot space here, which is pretty close to the bank. And the only other thing to build is a water pump. Next, you want to use the minigame teleport to pest control and summon your boat here. Use the bank here and grab out these materials: 4 iron bars, 2 logs, a tinderbox, 2 oak planks, a ball of wool, 8 camphor planks, and 10 swamp paste. If you have the equipable saw or hammer, you can bring another 10 swamp paste and 8 camphor planks for the next island to save a bank trip. I still have 1 free inventory space for my giant clam item. Next, we're going to Angler's Retreat, which requires 51 sailing to the northwest. This and the next island also require an innocuous inoculation station on your boat to enter the sea. Here on Angler's Retreat, you can build a rowboat that takes you to Corsair Cove. This is really nice to have built because it gives you fairly quick access to a new hardwood tree patch. North of the tree patch is a cooking pot space, which is pretty close to some lobster and shark fishing spots. Nice if you're a UIM or a sailing locked snowflake account or something. North of that is a spinning wheel, which is also pretty close to some flax. It is pretty far from a bank though, even with the rowboat. Next we're going northwest to Tear of the Soul, which requires 61 sailing. If you didn't have inventory space for the extra camphor planks and swamp paste, you can use the rowboat on Angler's Retreat to bank in Corsair Cove and come back, then sail northwest to the next island. Here is just a rowboat space. This takes you to the Isle of Souls. This is really good to have built because there's a hard clue step you can get on Tear of the Soul, and having the rowboat saves you from having to sail all the way here. Next we're going to Deepfin Point, which you can just teleport to with the Sailor's Amulet if you have the teleport unlocked. Otherwise you can just sail west from Tear of the Soul to get here. This requires 67 sailing. Bank here and grab out 8 ironwood planks, 4 addy bars, 4 cupronickel bars, and 2 magic stones if you want to make both banks. Head north on the island to the dungeon icon and enter the cave. The first bank is kind of in the middle of the caves. This one is nice to have built if you want to mine lead. I think this is the closest to a bank, but you can also just buy lead ore, so that's not as important. If you don't have 84 agility, this is also fairly close to the nickel rocks, but the nickel rocks on the surface might be a bit closer to the default bank on the dock. So I think this bank isn't as necessary to build. The eastern bank is really nice because with 84 agility, it's super close to the nickel rocks. And there's also rune and addy rocks, which I was surprised the rune rocks weren't mined out, so of course I had to mine them. Next, go to the bank on the dock and grab out these materials. 4 iron bars, a bucket, 2 oak planks, a ball of wool, 4 limestone bricks, 1 coal, a tinder box, 8 camphor planks, and 10 swamp paste. Summon your boat to the dock if you haven't and sail north to Vatrachos Island, which requires 46 sailing. Here you can build a rowboat that takes you to Varlamore near the Stonecutter outpost. There's not really a close bank or teleport around here, so this rowboat is kind of useless. On the island you can build a water pump and a potter's wheel and pottery oven in this building. There are some clay rocks around here, so you could use this island to train crafting if you're just dropping everything afterwards. Teleport or sail back to Deepfin Point to bank and prepare for the next island. Grab out 2 iron bars, 2 logs, and a tinder box for the first island, and some kind of teleport to Alderaan. And for the next island, you can bring 5 more iron bars, a bucket, 2 logs, a tinder box, 2 oak planks, and a rope. Summon your boat here and sail southwest to the Crown Jewel, which requires 64 sailing to Morad. The only thing to build here is a cooking pot. This is also the island where rainbow crabs are located, which is a new hunter training method. So you could use the cooking pot to cook the meat from them, but there's not really a bank close by. Next, teleport to Alderaan. I used the house portal teleport because this is the closest to the dock, but you can also use a Pennant of Eights or the Fairy Ring CKQ. There is a bank on Alderaan if you need to bank, but it's a little far from the dock, which is why I recommend bringing the stuff for the next island with you from Deepfin Point. Summon your boat here and now you'll sail south from Alderaan and then directly west to Laguna Aurorae, which requires 58 sailing. Be careful though because there are some krakens around here. Here on the island, run north to this camp area to build the 3 amenities. A cooking pot in the middle between all the buildings, a water pump a little to the north, and a loom in this building to the west. If you've never been here before, there's also a spirit tree you can unlock for faster travel here. Of course, you could also just use this to get here to build the amenities instead of sailing if you have it unlocked already. This is really nice because there's a cave of Korasks really close by. Next, teleport to Hosidius. I'm using a house portal teleport again, but you can also use a Xerix talisman to the glade, or the fairy ring AKR. Run south and bank at the charcoal burner by the dock. Grab out 2 iron bars, 2 logs, and a tinderbox. Summon your boat here and sail down around Crabclaw Isle and east to Chinchompa Island, which requires 42 sailing. All that you have to build here is a cooking pot. There are some red chins on the island, so I guess it's another option if everywhere else you have access to is packed for some reason. The cooking pot is pretty close to some fishing spots, but not close to a bank at all. Next, teleport to a bank and grab out 8 camphor planks and tin swamp paste and your summoned boat runes. This next part requires you to have an adamant keel on your boat to enter the crystal flecked waters. Use a fairy ring to BJS if you have 76 agility, or you can use a Zolandra teleport scroll. Run north to the Port Tyrus dock and summon your boat here. The next island is Ynysdail, requiring 73 sailing. To get here, the fastest way is to use this green portal just north of this small inaccessible island. Sail around it and turn into the portal. It takes you just northwest of Ynysdail and also really close to Gwyneth Glide. Sail around to the mooring point. Then all there is to build here is a rowboat, but I think this is a pretty good one to have. Using the rowboat requires Song of the Elves, but I think you can still build it if you don't have the quest done yet. I have this built already, but it takes you to Gwyneth, the area just north of Prif. The best way to get back to the rowboat whenever you need it is to use the spirit tree to Prif. Through the gates, run north to the rowboat and use it to get to Ynysdail. And from here you can very quickly get to the Gwyneth Glide Barracuda trial. There's also a dungeon here with a few high-level rocks, but most notably are the Aquanites, a slayer creature that drop the Aquanite tendon, which can be turned into a ranged offhand with a range strength bonus and a passive effect that makes crossbows better. Next, teleport to Piscatoris. You can use the Western Banner 3 or higher to teleport closest to the dock, or use a teleport scroll or the fairy ring AKQ. Bank here and first grab out 4 ironwood planks, 2 addy bars, 2 cupra nickel bars, and 1 magic stone to build the bank on the next island. If you don't want to build a bank on this island but have the equipable saw and hammer, the rest of the items will just barely all fit into your inventory. Run to the dock and summon your boat here. It's straight west to the Buccaneers Haven, which needs 76 sailing. This is the last island, so we're almost done. There are some krakens here, so watch out if your boat isn't very strong. Here on the island, you can go into this building and first build the bank. Then, if you're low on inventory space, you can just bring the items for the first 2 amenities. 4 iron bars, 4 lead bars, 8 steel bars, 2 coal, and a tinderbox. But with the equipable saw and hammer, you can also fit 10 swamp paste and 8 camphor planks in your inventory. On the western side of the island, you can build a furnace and an anvil. Then near the mooring point is a space for a rowboat. This takes you to Pirates Cove, which is convenient for a master clue step on Buccaneers Haven. I think teleporting to Relica and taking the boat to Pirates Cove, then the rowboat to Buccaneers Haven is the fastest way to get here. Though if you have a Western Banner 3 to teleport straight to Piscatoris and just sail from there, it's probably not all that different. Also on this island is another lantern harpooning spot. This does have a bank nearby, but I think it's about the same distance as Onyx Crest. And now you're done. That's all the buildable island amenities that are currently in the game. I hope we get more in the future because it's actually kind of fun going around building stuff on islands. Makes me feel like I'm helping create the world or something, and it's also just really satisfying. Some of them are really useful too, or give you more options if you're a restricted account. Anyway, I hope this guide was helpful to you and that you also had fun if you followed along. Thanks for watching and see you all next time. Goodbye!